What if the greatest risk to your retirement wasn't running out of money, but living in constant fear that you might? After years of observing senior men navigate decades of retirement, some with modest savings, others with substantial portfolios, I've discovered something that challenges everything we're told about financial security. The men whose money lasted longest weren't necessarily the ones who saved the most. They were the ones who mastered the art of enough. Some men with considerable wealth spend their retirement anxious, hoarding every dollar, afraid to enjoy what they spent a lifetime building. Others, with far more modest means, live with quiet confidence, spending intentionally, giving generously, and somehow, their money simply lasts. So today, we explore a question that touches every man who has ever wondered whether his savings will outlive him, or whether he'll outlive his savings. What is the real secret to making retirement savings last not just financially, but peacefully? Seneca wrote, "It is not the man who has too little, but the man who craves more, that is poor." This single idea reshapes how we should think about longevity in retirement. The question was never simply, "How much do I have?" It was always, "How aligned is what I have with what I actually need?" Marcus Aurelius offers a companion truth: confine yourself to the present. Many senior men spend their retirement years mentally rehearsing worst-case scenarios: market crashes, healthcare costs, inflation, outliving their savings, robbing themselves of peace in the present, while trying to control a future that remains fundamentally uncertain. Wise senior men don't ignore the future, but they refuse to let fear of it consume the life they have right now. This is the essence of Stoic financial wisdom: plan diligently, then release the anxious grip on outcomes you cannot fully control. Behavioral economists have identified something fascinating. Loss aversion often causes retirees to underspend even when they have more than enough, simply because the psychological pain of watching a balance decrease feels worse than the pleasure of enjoying that same money. This explains why so many financially secure senior men live far below their means, not out of wisdom, but out of unconscious fear. There's also present bias, working in reverse during retirement. While younger people often overspend by prioritizing today over tomorrow, some retirees swing too far the other direction, so focused on preserving tomorrow that they forget to actually live today. Fidelity's retirement research has found that many retirees withdraw far less than their sustainable rate, not because their plan requires it, but because psychological anxiety overrides sound financial guidance. There's a name for this: the scarcity mindset, a pattern of thinking that persists even after the actual scarcity has been resolved. A man who spent decades building wealth through frugality often struggles to shift into a mindset of intentional, guilt-free spending, even when his savings could easily support it. The wisest senior men learn to distinguish between the discipline that built their wealth and the fear that could unnecessarily limit their enjoyment of it. The man who confuses frugality with fear. Consider a retired man in his early 70s, with more than enough saved to live comfortably for decades. Yet he refuses to replace an aging car, hesitates to help a struggling grandchild with tuition, and feels guilty booking a trip he's dreamed about for years. On the surface, this looks like discipline, but often, it's something else entirely: unexamined fear, disguised as prudence. Epictetus reminds us, wealth consists not in having great possessions, but in having few wants. But there's a deeper layer to this wisdom that's often missed. Having few wants doesn't mean denying yourself the wants that align with your values. It means eliminating the wants driven by ego, comparison, or fear, not eliminating joy itself. A wise senior man learns to spend, not recklessly, but intentionally, understanding that money unused for its intended purpose isn't discipline, it's simply delayed regret. The man who understands the difference between saving and hoarding, There's a crucial distinction that many senior men never fully articulate: the difference between saving and hoarding. Saving is purposeful, money set aside with intention, aligned with a plan, serving a clear future need. Hoarding is fear-based, money withheld, not because a plan requires it, but because releasing it feels emotionally unsafe, regardless of what the numbers say. This connects to what psychologists call the endowment effect, our tendency to overvalue what we already possess, making it disproportionately difficult to part with, even when logic says we should. A man who built his identity around financial discipline for 40 years often struggles to recognize when that same discipline has quietly become an obstacle to enjoying what he built it for. Real wealth begins where the need to impress ends, but real freedom begins where the fear of spending ends too. Financial planners often discuss sustainable withdrawal rates, the percentage of savings a retiree can draw down annually while maintaining long-term security. But there's a psychological withdrawal rate that matters just as much. How much peace of mind can a man sustainably access without guilt, anxiety, or fear? Many retirees who are financially capable of a comfortable withdrawal rate live as though they're operating under far stricter limitations, driven not by their actual plan, but by an internalized scarcity that no longer reflects their reality. Marcus Aurelius teaches us, "Very little is needed to make a happy life. It is all within yourself, in your way of thinking." The wisest senior men don't just calculate their financial withdrawal rate, they examine their psychological one, learning to withdraw not just money, but permission to actually enjoy it. The man who plans for longevity, not just numbers. One of the quiet habits of financially wise senior men is this: they plan not just for how long their money needs to last, but for how they want to feel throughout that time. This means building margin into a plan, not excessive, fear-driven margin, but reasonable buffers that allow flexibility for healthcare costs, family needs, or unexpected life changes. The Federal Reserve's survey of consumer finances has shown that retirees with even modest financial buffers report significantly higher life satisfaction than those operating with no margin at all, regardless of their overall net worth. This isn't about having unlimited resources. It's about having enough structural flexibility that fear doesn't dictate every financial decision. A man who has built appropriate margin into his plan can weather a market downturn, a health scare, or a family emergency without abandoning his peace of mind in the process. A peaceful life is the greatest return on investment, and margin is often what protects that peace. The man who says no without guilt, making retirement savings last, isn't only about spending wisely. It's also about protecting those savings from well-intentioned erosion. Consider the retired father repeatedly asked to help adult children financially, or the grandfather who feels obligated to fund every family request, regardless of his own long-term needs. Each individual request may seem reasonable, but collectively, unchecked generosity, however loving in intention, can quietly undermine decades of careful planning. This reflects what psychologists call decision fatigue, the cumulative exhaustion of continuously navigating emotionally charged financial requests without clear boundaries. Seneca offers timeless guidance here. He who spares the wicked injures the good. Applied to retirement, a man who spares his savings from every generous impulse protects not just himself, but the very people he hopes to support for years to come. Saying no isn't selfish. It's often the most loving decision a man can make, for both himself and his family's long-term stability. The man who understands that health is wealth. No conversation about making retirement savings last is complete without acknowledging the role of health, not just physical, but financial health, tied directly to well-being. Senior men who prioritize movement, nutrition, sleep, and mental engagement often experience not just a better quality of life, but genuine financial benefits, fewer unexpected medical expenses, greater independence, and more years of active enjoyment from the wealth they've built. This connects to Maslow's hierarchy of needs. True security isn't just financial. It's physical, emotional, and social as well. A man who neglects his health while obsessing over his portfolio often finds that the very wealth he protected has little value if he lacks the vitality to enjoy it. Retirement savings last longest, not just through smart financial choices, but through a life lived with enough vitality to actually experience the years those savings were meant to support. The man who finds meaning beyond the money. Perhaps the deepest secret to making retirement savings last isn't financial at all. It's psychological and spiritual. Men who find purpose beyond their bank account, through mentorship, family relationships, community involvement, or simply the quiet satisfaction of a life well lived, often report far greater contentment than men who define their retirement solely by their net worth. This reflects self-determination theory. Lasting fulfillment comes not from external metrics like wealth accumulation, but from autonomy, purpose, and meaningful connection. A man who has built purpose into his retirement rarely feels the anxious need to measure his worth by his remaining balance. His identity was never fully tied to the number in the first place. Money is a tool, freedom is the goal, and true freedom includes the freedom to find meaning that has nothing to do with dollars at all. Marcus Aurelius reminds us, "He who has the greatest riches is not he who has much, but he who wants for nothing." Making retirement savings last for life was never solely about calculating the perfect withdrawal rate or predicting market returns with precision. It was about cultivating a relationship with money defined by wisdom rather than fear, spending intentionally, saving purposefully, giving generously within boundaries, and trusting that a life aligned with genuine values requires far less than an anxious mind often believes. The wisest senior men protect their peace before they protect their pride. And in protecting that peace, they often discover something remarkable. Their savings, guided by wisdom rather than fear, tend to last exactly as long as they need to. Growing older is not about hoarding every dollar out of fear, nor is it about spending carelessly without regard for tomorrow. It's about finding the wisdom to walk the narrow path between the two, spending with intention, saving with purpose, and trusting that a life built on discipline and gratitude rarely runs out of what it truly needs. As Seneca once wrote, "Life is long if you know how to use it." Perhaps the truest secret to making retirement savings last isn't found in a spreadsheet at all. It's found in a mind at peace, a heart free from fear, and a life lived fully within the boundaries wisdom has already provided. I'd love to hear from you in the comments. What has helped you find peace with spending your retirement savings, rather than just accumulating them? Have you ever struggled with guilt around spending money you worked a lifetime to save? What does having enough mean to you in this stage of life? What boundary have you had to set to protect your long-term financial peace? If this video brought you clarity or comfort, consider liking it, subscribing, and sharing it with another senior man who values peace over panic when it comes to his retirement. Seek wisdom, protect your peace, leave a legacy,